Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I so do appreciate you tuning in. We've got so much to get to. I want to get to three things you need to know before I get to today's stories. Three things you need to know. Right here, I've got the update. I get the updates still from Illinois State University. They give me like these emergency texts, and I was getting them all last night. Truly tragic. I'm praying for the students. I'm praying for the victims. Terrible tragedy. Here's what we know so far and what I've been able to gather this morning. I don't know if they've really caught the guy yet. I haven't been able to see that. But Illinois State University, the latest university update says police responded at about 7:40 p.m. on Sunday to a report of shots fired at the Bone Student Center where some student organization was holding an event. There was a student organization there. One person was reportedly struck as shots were fired during a fight in the entryway outside of the event. Okay, so Bone Student Center, there's a student organization putting on an event. Outside of the event, there was somebody struck by shots fired. Police continued to seek the suspect, who's described as a slender black male, approximately 5 feet 10 inches, with black afro-looking hair, wearing all black clothing, and he was like just running around the south end of the Bone Student Center. This was the last update as of last night at around midnight. If you have seen information or seen anything, if you're an eyewitness, if you have information, ISU Police is encouraging you email them. Classes are going to be held today, but there are going to be events canceled. The Bone Student Center is going to be closed. Yeah, clearly. Praying for all those involved. That's something you need to know today. If I get an update, I haven't been able to see if they made an arrest or if they caught the guy. Haven't seen an update come yet. But another thing that you need to know, according to BLN News, now I think it's even more than this. We're probably looking at closer to 3,000, but somewhere between 500 and 3,000 employees have been notified in this month. Okay, so we're not even over this month. We've still got 2 days here of the month of April. Man, April went by so quick, am I right? It's probably because Easter's in there, but April, there were anywhere between like near 600 to 3,000 employees have been notified that they are laid off. So this tells you what you need to know about Illinois. Illinois is not prospering as far as employment goes. We have some of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. I actually just shared out there were the 27 counties of property taxes. McLean County says some of the highest property taxes. There are 27 counties. Wire Points did the write up on this, and you guys can go check it out on our social media page. But McLean County falls on that list here of highest property taxes in the nation. And, Livingston County's on there, McLean County, Kankakee County. The nation's highest property taxes in Illinois has 27 counties in the nation's top 50. Okay, so nation's top 50, our rank, McLean County's rank, is 27. So we are pretty high up there. We're not number one, highest property taxes in the nation, but we're pretty darn close. We're at our national rank is 27, which is insane. Yeah, that's just absolutely wild. So, and Illinois overall has the highest property taxes. So that's number one, why, people don't want to work here. People don't want to, open up businesses here. We've got the highest corporate income tax. I mean, it's insane to do business here and to live here. That's why you're seeing these companies. There were 10 companies listed who did like mass layoffs, I guess. And 4 of them listed said, hey, we did a mass layoff. And then the other 4, there were another 4 that said plant closures. So the major industry that's impacted by all of this is manufacturing. Okay, Illinois shows the highest number of job losses in this industry, manufacturing. So these are good paying jobs. These are jobs that people want. And because Illinois is so unfriendly, so just anti-business and anti-human, really, You're starting to see, people lose their jobs, people close up plants here. It's really quite tragic. So Cook County has lost 8,668 jobs. McLean County is ninth on that list. We're not doing great here in McLean County, okay, because we're on the list by county with 275 jobs lost. Okay, so this is terrible. It's just so sad. Anytime if you've ever lost a job or been laid off, it is tragic. It traumatizes you. You feel like you lose a part of yourself if you really like your job. And yeah, it's not getting any better here in the state of Illinois and McLean County, Cook County. They're pretty bad counties when it comes to that. And then on top of that, Cook County was like number 50 when it came to highest property taxes. So top 50. So the top 50 counties with highest property taxes, Cook County is at the tippity top. Okay, so Cook County is at the tippity top. McLean County is kind of in the middle there, with Illinois counties the top 50. So I'd imagine Cook County is at the top, tippity top at 50. So, yeah. Number two, another thing that you need to know today, there is going to be some sort of event, and they've been holding these like every other week, which I just find interesting. They want you to think that they're relevant. They're not. These are not grassroots organizations. These are nonprofit organizations. And nationwide, there have been protests orchestrated. It's not grassroots. These attendees don't care about the massive debt, obviously, $36 trillion in debt being handed down to your kids, your grandkids, and beyond. They don't care about this massive number of illegal immigrants and criminals that the Democrats have allowed into the country for 4 years. And they want you to think that they're the majority. That's why they're holding these events on a weekly basis, even here locally. And this isn't a grassroots movement. This is happening across the nation, and it's a Democrat apparatus. They've been weaponized through nonprofit organizations, and it's organized and it's orchestrated. It's not grassroots. It's not organic by any means. So events have been held every couple of weeks to make you think that they're a serious group. They're not. They want to go back to 2016 when they were doing stupid impeachments, like meaningless impeachments. And I don't know about you, we should be working together to solve problems, not getting hung up on impeachment. We should actually be getting things done for the people. The people are nothing more than opposition to, like, they just want to be a thorn in Donald Trump's side, these Democrats. Now, who was it? Somebody actually came out and said that they want the majority back just so that way they can impeach Donald Trump, which is just so ridiculous. They should be focusing on working with the other side of the aisle, not doing these phony impeachments. So May Day, May 1st, has roots in communism, but it's on Thursday this year, so the event had to be moved up to Saturday, May 3rd. Okay, so May Day, there's roots in communism there surrounding May 1st. So Donald Trump hasn't done anything unconstitutional. Okay, he's simply trying to work the enforcement branch, the executive branch of government, and he's trying to enforce federal immigration laws. And you have these activist judges, who I'm going to get to here in just a second, who are trying to overrule and undo the will of the people. You've got these lower district judges. Okay, they're not even really the Supreme Court, who are ruling on decisions or making decisions, and they're trying to make decisions on federal law. Donald Trump, being the executive branch, they have to follow federal law, okay, and enforce federal law. And the judges are making it near impossible to do that. They've gotten we do have a constitutional crisis on our hands. We have judges who were installed by President Joe Biden. Now, I warned of this because they were going crazy installing these judges, these radical judges, progressive judges. When Donald Trump had gotten elected right before Joe Biden left, he installed all of these radical judges. And we do have a constitutional crisis because these lawsuits, the progressive lawsuits, the progressive NGOs, brought by progressive NGOs, they're tying up Donald Trump's policy, the policy you voted him in to implement. So that brings me to May 3rd. May 3rd, I guess they're going to have more groups, labor groups, nonprofit organizations. Like I said, this is not grassroots, it's orchestrated. They're putting together a May 3rd event, local 5050 50501. So this is a labor group, I'd imagine. And they're making their voices heard. That's what Crystal Label says on social media. I'm not organizing either event, she says. I have a prior afternoon application on May 3rd. So she's not organizing this, she just shared it, but this is 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. Oh, okay. So this isn't a labor group. Sorry about that. It's not a labor group. 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. So 5051. Okay, 50501. This is a group, but it's a nonprofit organization. I haven't done digging on this group, but I guarantee it's funded by progressive billionaires. And this is not, my point is none of these are grassroots, and they're going to keep doing these. It says 50-50, one movement. 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. Impeach, convict, and remove. Impeach for unconstitutional overreach. Convict for unlawful use of power. Remove corrupt politicians and billionaires from office. So ridiculous. So I guess there's May 3rd, impeach, convict, remove protest, 12 to 1:30 p.m. BCPA. Like I said, they did this a couple of weeks ago, and they're going to keep doing this because they want you to think that they're the majority. They aren't. Newsflash, because guess who got elected? President Donald Trump. So you're in the majority. But they're going to keep doing this to try to be a thorn in your side and to advocate for the impeachment of President Donald Trump. They're not interested in working together with the other side of the aisle, working with President Donald Trump to solve problems and to implement the policy that he said he was going to implement, that got him into the president. We elected him to do this. So when you're trying to impeach him, when you have these activist judges shutting him down at every turn, you're really not, you're undoing the will of the people. And that is a constitutional crisis. We do have a constitutional crisis. We elected President Donald Trump, duly elected president. We expect him to do things, and you guys are trying to stop him from doing that. That's called tyranny. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Good morning, Kat. Good morning. I appreciate it. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Just a few things that I wanted to note locally that were going on. I didn't even get to the stories that I have planned here for the 6 o'clock hour. The 6 o'clock hour, we are going to be talking about Democrat President 2028, a Democrat hopeful, I should say. I am convinced at this point, especially considering Juliana Stratton and his endorsement of her for U.S. Senate. I'm convinced at this point that Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be making or launching a campaign for 2028. He's still in the running, obviously, for governor in 2026. I mean, I think that he wins 2026 and then he just, resigns. It doesn't serve a full term, and then he goes to run for 2028, and then he appoints somebody. Or there's a special election maybe that's held. Like I said, I don't think another Republican will win the state of Illinois when it comes to the governorship, the gubernatorial race. I don't think that, we're ever going to have fair races in Illinois until we fix the gerrymandering that's gone on. And just the total debauchery that is the state law right now. I mean, there's no fixing the state of Illinois until we fix our campaign finance laws. At this point, you have the Illinois Democrat Party able to contribute to campaign coffers of politicians an unlimited amount of funds. So you can have progressive billionaires from all over the world, Governor J.B. Pritzker, you can have all kinds of billionaires funneling money in to the Democrat Party through the Illinois Democrat Party through that party, and then they provide unlimited funds to their candidates. And it's just like, I don't know, bringing a knife to a gunfight, okay, in Illinois if you're a Republican, and especially if you're a grassroots Republican conservative. Okay, so a lot of these Republicans take money from labor groups and nonprofit organizations, and specifically the American Teacher Federation, the teachers union. Okay, they've been weaponized, and they take money. Republicans and Democrats, the state house, they'll take money from the teachers union. And when you are in the pocket of those organizations and you are implementing policy, it's just so corrupt here when you are implementing policy favorable to them simply because they donate to your campaign coffers. They're going to keep giving you money, okay, because the politicians keep writing good policy for the Illinois teachers union. For example, the homeschooling bill, okay, that was pushed obviously because it runs afoul to public school, and people are pulling their kids out of public school at alarming rates in teaching them at home. And Democrats caught on to that. The Illinois Teachers Union caught on to that, the IEA, and they said, you know what, we're going to back this candidate with our dollars, and we're going to expect her to write favorable policy for us, and she's going to write policy. You know, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. We're going to have her write the policy that helps us, and she's just going to help us out. And, you know, that's corruption, but they don't even see it as corruption. Okay, because they're like, oh, they're my constituents. These special interest groups are my constituents, and that's actually not true. These special interest groups, there's a fourth branch of government in Illinois, and it is the special interest groups. Okay, whatever they want happens because they donate constantly to these Illinois politicians through the Illinois Democratic Party, who unlimited funding. So there's so much to be fixed. I don't think that Republicans ever get a stronghold here in the state of Illinois. And that brings me to Governor J.B. Pritzker. I don't think a Republican wins the state of Illinois, the governorship. It's just too far gone. And I hate to say that, but I mean, we should be doing what we can to, you know, I mean, illegal immigrants in municipal elections. That's allowed in multiple municipalities here in the state of Illinois, which is just wild to me. How that's even possible and allowed, even in municipal elections. Okay, they claim that, you know, oh, you know, and we've got like 40 plus days of voting here in the state of Illinois and mail-in ballots. It's just impossible. It's an uphill climb. So, like I said, that is what leads me to believe that Governor J.B. Pritzker will win 2026, and then he'll step down and run for 2028. He's definitely looking and has his eyes set on the 2028 presidential run, clearly, because now he has introduced new measures against the El Salvador president and basically like sanctioning the El Salvador president for helping President Donald Trump with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So he is retaliating really against El Salvador for aiding his unconstitutional deportation scheme, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So we're going to get to that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. And then we are also going to get to another terrible judge, awful judge, who happens to have an anti-Christian past. She ruled against Donald Trump's policy, the agenda here, which is the America First agenda to protect election integrity. Having illegals or having people verify that they're able to vote in federal elections. That was something that Donald Trump ran on. We voted him in to implement that. And here you have radical progressive judges with anti-Christian sentiments ruling against that policy and stopping the will of the people. And that is the constitutional crisis we are facing here. Woohoo! Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and Bloomington Normal. Stories today in the 6 o'clock hour. Let's get to soon-to-be president, or soon-to-be presidential candidate Governor J.B. Pritzker. He's not going to be president, folks, but I really do think, especially with Juliana Stratton, the lieutenant governor, announcing that she wants Dick Durbin's seat, and then Governor J.B. Pritzker endorsing her, I really do think that Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to run for 2028. I really do. I think that he's going to try to make or go for president in 2028. I think that he wins in 2026, and then there's a special election held, or there's an appointment, some sort of appointment made. I don't know. But Governor J.B. Pritzker, I definitely think he's running in 2028, and here's why. He goes all in on these illegal immigrants with these new measures against the El Salvador as a country, and the president, because they helped him, Donald Trump, with the deportation of the MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Okay, so we're going to get to that, but we're also going to get to a terrible, awful judge, anti-Christian judge, by the way. She has an anti-Christian past. Mocked a Christian woman, 75-year-old woman, for praying outside of an abortion clinic. We're going to get to this judge. She just ruled against America's, Donald Trump's America First agenda to protect the elections. Okay, that's literally what she's ruled against, is Donald Trump's agenda here to protect and preserve election integrity and our elections, and just have people verify who they are at voter registration, and that they're able to vote in federal elections. Okay, that's what she ruled against, and I don't know why you would rule against that unless you're in favor of not knowing and allowing people who aren't supposed to be voting in our federal elections. You want them to vote in our federal elections. That's the only possible explanation as to why this judge ruled the way she did. I'm going to get to that. Plus, will District 87, I'm sure you got your property tax bill, pretty high, ain't it? And well, there's a reason why it's pretty high. McLean County is in the top 50 counties in the nation for highest property taxes. I mean, it's bad. We're kind of middle of the pack there when it comes to our ranking in McLean County, but I've told you multiple times that we're higher than statewide, and the state of Illinois is the highest in the nation for property taxes, and McLean County is higher than statewide averages for property tax rates. Okay, so we have a pretty high property tax rate. And we're like in the top 50 counties. Now think of that. There's 102 counties in Illinois alone, okay? And think about the nation, okay? You figure, I mean, I don't know how many counties are in the nation. I should probably look that up. But that's a ton of counties, and we're in the top 50, okay? Which is crazy. But will District 87 bring your property tax down? Don't hold your breath. They say they're going to, it's a promise, but we're going to break down the math here and what you should expect if they were actually serious about property tax relief, since the sales tax has been, voted on. So we're going to get to all of that. But first, it's totally disingenuous of the left and the media, I repeat myself, to claim that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an innocent father. It's totally disingenuous, in that it's also wrong to claim that he didn't go through due process, and I get it. The whole, what was it that the White House admitted to? They said that there was a clerical error in his actual deportation. Now, this actually happened too, and I'm more familiar with this case than really Kilmar's, but I've looked through Kilmar Garcia. Looks a lot like Gabriel Calixto and what he actually kind of went through. Gabriel Calixto, we know him as the guy who allegedly murdered Emma Schaefer. She is was a Springfield woman. She was tragically stabbed to death, and he's on the run. I don't think that the federal authorities caught him before he fled to Mexico. But anyway, Gabriel Calixto, he kidnapped a girl, okay, first, and then he was convicted of kidnapping. Okay, so he was convicted, Kilmar Garcia, Okay, he was convicted by a judge for all kinds of crimes. There was an order of protection. His wife, he was. There were all kinds of crimes that he was convicted of. Okay. Then he served time. Gabriel Calixto did serve time in the IDOC, and then he got it pled down to unlawful restraint. And then as soon as he got out of prison, he was slapped with a deportation order. Okay, this is a lawful order where a judge signs off on a deportation order. Gabriel Calixto did. Now he had a hearing, okay, with this deportation order. Okay, so there's many layers here with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He got a deportation order as well. He was convicted of all kinds of things. Judges had tied him, okay, straight up court documents tied him to the MS-13 gang. Okay, so, and he was convicted of all kinds of things. Convicted MS-13 gang member, okay, by judges. And then there was a deportation order. Here's where the left gets hung up. The lawful deportation order, a judge signed off on this deportation order, and what the executive branch did and ICE officials, they deported him with this deportation order that was issued by a judge. Now, there is one more hearing that he was supposed to go through, I guess, which is just so stupid to begin with, okay? And this is why Gabriel Calixto is no longer, like, in the country. He should have been deported, and we shouldn't have waited for that hearing, because guess what? While he was in the waiting of this hearing, Gabriel Calixto went out and he murdered Emma Schaefer, allegedly, because he wasn't convicted on this yet, from what I understand, because they haven't been able to catch him. But he was waiting for this hearing after his deportation order was issued by a judge, okay? He was waiting for this hearing, okay? And in that time period, he went out and he murdered again, okay? Or went to go murder somebody. He went out to go commit more crimes, okay? Allegedly, like I said, he hasn't been convicted of it. But, had we not sat on our hands with Gabriel Calixto, Emma Schaefer would be alive today. I'm sorry, but that's the truth, okay? He should have been deported the moment that deportation order was generated and signed off on by a judge, okay? Then the executive branch should step in. When you layer up this process, it just gets to be too much. All right, I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay, go to smash that like button. We're going to come right back. We've got to get to a few things here. I want to get to the rest of this. I didn't even get to Governor J.B. Pritzker and what he's doing. I was just kind of explaining the due process and the process of these criminal aliens. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia, it's totally wrong to claim that he lacked due process. Okay, he was convicted of several things. Kilmar was convicted, and then there was a lawful deportation order set up. I don't know how many more processes we have to go through until, we can deport this individual. Okay. In the case of Gabriel Calixto, had we deported the individual when the deportation order was generated, he wouldn't have been able to kill Emma Schaefer. Okay. Same thing here. What Donald Trump has done with Kilmar Garcia is the same thing with Gabriel Calixto, but what he did was actually deport him when that deportation order was generated and signed off by a judge. Okay. Now there's one more tiny little step, which shouldn't even be a step to begin with. Okay. There's too much due process for this individual. Like, how much should he go before 18 judges, which actually Kilmar Garcia had gone before 17 judges for various different things. But he went before 17 judges until deportation order was. So this deportation order, that's almost like a, hey, flee the country for your crimes kind of deal. Okay, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he probably would have been on the run had it not been for ICE officials and ICE authorities to grab him before he could go on the run. He probably would have fled to El Salvador anyway, which is why he doesn't want to come back, by the way. He wants to stay in El Salvador, or he doesn't want to come back and work with the American officials, like the senators who are going there, because he's going to get popped if he comes back, because they're going to think that he ratted on the gangs. Okay, so he fled El Salvador because of a rival gang issue. Came to the United States, caused all kind of havoc, had a protection order, an order of protection. His wife, okay, he's such a loving father, an innocent father. He's a wife beater, okay, order of protection against him, all of that. So he causes all kinds of chaos here in America after he fled El Salvador. But he doesn't want to come back to America because guess what? His gang is probably going to cut his throat if he comes back, because that means that they'll think that he cut a deal to come back to America. Okay. So we've got Governor J.B. Pritzker, and he's retaliating against El Salvador for, quote, aiding for his unconstitutional deportation scheme. Totally foolish for anybody to claim that Kilmar did not have due process. Now, I guess there was some sort of clerical error or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think there's a lack of due process. I think that there's actually too much due process, to be honest with you. The federal authorities should be able to do their jobs. The executive branch, ICE, this agency, should be able to do their job. He went before 17 judges before finally being deported. So we're not dealing with we're not dealing with an innocent father, and to claim so is absolutely disingenuous. So, man, I really do wish that Governor J.B. Pritzker, we wouldn't have this like record unemployment. We wouldn't have mass layoffs like we do. I just opened the show with these mass layoffs. I mean, I think it's like 3,000 people or something like that. Absolutely insane. Cook County lost 8,668 jobs. McLean County lost 275. This is insanity. Like, unemployment is skyrocketing in Illinois. I wish that Governor J.B. Pritzker would care less about foreign nationals and more about, I don't know, the citizens that he's tasked with representing. I wish he fought hard for Americans. I wish he fought for Americans the way he fights for foreign nationals accused of awful crimes. But that's not Governor J.B. Pritzker, and that's not what he does. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Go ahead, find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I didn't even get to Governor J.B. Pritzker and how he's retaliating against El Salvador and the El Salvador president for aiding Donald Trump's unconstitutional deportation scheme. Like I said in the break, before the break, I was telling you about how, Kilmar and Gabriel Calixto, these individuals go before they have all kinds of due process. Okay. I think that the problem is that we have too much due process, actually. I wish Governor J.B. Pritzker fought for Illinoisans the way he fights for foreign nationals accused of crimes. But I guess that's too much to ask of Governor J.B. Pritzker. I checked the Constitution. Okay. I checked it really fast in the break, and I couldn't find a single part that says, yes, allow MS-13 gang members to reside in your country after they've broken federal immigration laws. Okay. So there was a legal deportation order signed off on by a judge to deport Kilmar Abrego Casilla. Now, there is a hearing that I guess didn't happen. I don't know, but he went before 17 different judges, folks, and was convicted. A convicted MS-13 gang member. This is not a good guy. Okay, there's too much due process. In the case of Gabriel Calixto, that deportation order actually served as a, hey, get out of the United States, you're going to be deported. And it kind of served as like a warning flag, like, hey, you're going to get deported. And he packed up his stuff and left, so that way he didn't have to serve time in a Mexican prison. Okay, so he packed up his stuff, he left, he's on the run. I don't even think he's been convicted of the murder of Emma Schaefer, in which he's accused of. But like I said, They've broken federal immigration law. There's almost too much due process for these individuals. I would make that argument. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is asking, according to the Huffington Post, the state's pension funds and procurement agencies to examine any investments or contracts that they have with companies in El Salvador, the first step towards a possible boycott of the country for assisting President Donald Trump in defying court orders on the treatment of migrants. Okay, so this is what the Huffington Post says. In a statement, Governor J.B. Pritzker indicated the moves were in response to the El Salvador president and his willingness to help President Donald Trump deny due process to hundreds of migrants deported to El Salvador and now held in a notoriously dangerous maximum security prison with no potential release. Yes, El Salvador, these are dangerous prisons, but they're for the worst of the worst, okay? And now they're no longer the murder capital of the world, El Salvador, thanks to this president, this new president, Bukele, Nayib Bukele. He's the president of El Salvador. So essentially what Governor J.B. Pritzker is doing here in his capacity as governor, he wants to issue sanctions against the country, which is not really, I mean, what? Which tells me all I really need to know about Governor J.B. Pritzker and his political aspirations. 100% he's wanting to run in 2028. The Juliana Stratton thing definitely makes me think that he's running in 2028 as well. The United States Constitution guarantees due process, says Governor J.B. Pritzker. We are witnessing Donald Trump erode our fundamental constitutional rights in real time. We must fight to restore the balance of power. Yeah, there is a constitutional crisis. These progressive judges are overstepping. Okay, we're supposed to have the judicial branch, executive branch, and they're all equal branches of government. Okay, they're not. There's not one more powerful than the other, and these activist judges think that the judicial branch is more powerful than the president. That's not the case. The president is more powerful either, but they're all supposed to do their own jobs. These branches of government. So yeah, Pritzker goes on. He says the state of Illinois will stand up for the rule of law and do everything in its power to stop the Trump administration from ripping apart our most basic rights. Give me a break. Give me a break. So while the left claims that this guy, Kilmar Garcia, didn't have due process, that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, I would argue, much like Gabriel Calixto, he had too much due process. After Gabriel Calixto kidnapped a girl, okay, after Kilmar had an order of protection launched against him because his wife claimed that he was beating her, okay, after several judges had convicted him of being an MS-13 gang member, okay, that should have been enough due process right there, okay? And once the deportation order is generated finally by a judge, then then it goes into the executive branch's hands. Here's what we're running into. We've got these judges who have run absolutely just, they think that they've got all the power in the world, okay? And they are ignoring that there is an executive branch who is supposed to enforce our laws, okay? So let's take a listen here. This is J.D. Vance, and talks about this, and he explains this in like 1 minute, and it's great. Here we go.
Abrego Garcia's wife has been very vocal about how she doesn't think he's getting due process, and she now also fears for her safety. Do you have a message to her specifically?
Well, I don't have a message to his wife. I mean, look, I just disagree with the idea that he hasn't been offered due process. He had a couple of immigration hearings. He had a valid deportation order. I think this idea that somehow that we couldn't deport an MS-13 gang member, and he was an MS-13 gang member, is preposterous. And I think there's actually a deeper issue going on, which is that you see some radical judges at the district court level who are trying to layer so much quote unquote process on top of the immigration system that it makes it impossible to function. We have over 20 million illegal aliens in the United States of America. Are we not allowed to deport them? Because if we're not allowed to deport them, then what these district courts are saying is fundamentally they reject the will of the American people as it was expressed in November of 2024. We just reject that. I believe the American people elected President Trump to do many jobs, but perhaps the most important job was to bring down the number of illegal immigration in this country. That's what he's trying to do. We're going to keep on doing it.
Okay, that was J.D. Vance. He explains it in a very simple minute. Now, I do want to play this clip. Senator John Kennedy, he talks about how this guy went before 17 judges before finally a deportation order was issued.
Anybody who can't stand up for the Constitution and the right of due process doesn't deserve to lead.
Chris says Mr. Garcia's had no due process. He's been in front of 17 judges, some of them twice. Probably $5 million worth of legal fees, and he hadn't had to pay a dime. Unless you're next level obtuse, you know that Mr. Garcia is never coming back to the United States, ever.
Okay, so there you have it. 17 judges, and like I said, had not Donald Trump's ICE or this federal agency done their job, which is enforce federal immigration laws, had they not deported Gilmar, we'd probably have something like the Gabriel Calixto situation, where he's on the run, not convicted of the alleged murder of Emma Schaefer. Okay, this is also an illegal immigrant who had so much due process to a point where I think that it ultimately led to him killing a woman and not being held accountable for it, because we were waiting on this hearing after the deportation order was issued, when he unlawfully restrained, kidnapped a girl, okay, threatened to kill her, okay, he kidnapped her, served time in the IDOC. I mean, you know the story. I've told you several times, and this is just like such a key case. Like look at this case, and it tells you about every single other case in this. So there's one extra layer. I would even say multiple layers of due process that just need to be eliminated, because what they're doing is they are impeding the ability of the federal government or of the executive branch to do their job now. So that being said, I don't know, maybe the 18th judge would have ruled that this guy had no right to live in America, but who knows? And then they'd finally shut up once an 18th judge gets Gilmar Abrego Garcia in front of him. Maybe the 18th judge, would be enough due process for these lefties. I doubt it, because even after the 18th judge, they're going to say, well, he needs another hearing. He needs to go before another judge. Give me a break. That being said, Pritzker, total clown. He's not doing himself any favors. He should just stay out of this, issuing like sanction or boycotting the country of El Salvador. You're not doing yourself any favors. The public, they clearly are not taking the stance that it is morally superior to have open borders. The American people, that is a very unfavorable view, open borders. And the sooner he realizes that, the better off he's going to be, Governor J.B. Pritzker, but I doubt he realizes. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. I want to get to one of these progressive judges that I've been talking about this morning, Colleen Kolar-Catelli. Okay, so that name might ring a bell, because she actually, a couple of years ago, I remember doing the story, 75-year-old woman, she was praying outside of an abortion clinic. And this judge issued a ruling and essentially said that she had to serve time in prison. And the husband was like, wait, does she have to serve time in prison? Can't we just parole her and let her stay home? I'm scared that she's going to die in prison for simply praying outside of an abortion clinic, okay? I think it was like the FACE Act or something like that this judge had said that she violated, which says that you can't be within a certain amount of feet of an abortion clinic, which is absolutely wild. But anyway, Donald Trump pardoned this woman, the 75-year-old woman. We're going to get to this judge, because now she's blocking Donald Trump's attempt to require proof of citizenship in order to vote, which just makes sense, okay? Because we have a federal law, and like I said, this is the executive branch's job to enforce the law on the books, which is, hey, illegal immigrants, only citizens can vote in our federal elections, and they're trying to enforce that, of course, by forcing people to prove that they are citizens. And this judge, is shutting that down. And I'm going to get to it here in just a little bit. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'll be right back. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I appreciate you tuning in. We are going to be getting to that radical judge, but we're going to get to a few other things this morning. I want to get to District 87, the tax, property tax. They say that your property taxes are going to go down. I doubt it. Your assessed values. Okay, so here is how the maths. Okay, your assessed values are going to be going up. Okay, and if the district wants to collect more than 51.7 million minus 2 million. Okay, so they're saying that they're going to do 2 million, which is 1/3 of the estimated 6 million in revenue generated by the sales tax. So they're going to do minus 2 million. Really what they need to do, okay, we're going to lower your property taxes. What they would need to do is take today's revenue, which this 51.7 figure comes from the amount they collected last year. Okay, so they've got $51.7 million that they collected from the taxpayers via property taxes. Okay, District 87. So what they need to do is do $51.7 million minus the 2 million, so $49.7 million. Okay. Now, if they collect more than the $49.7 million, if they set a property tax, or if they have this property tax rate, okay, and your assessed values go up, okay, and they wind up collecting more than $49.7 million, they lied to you. Your property taxes aren't going down. Okay. They think you're dumb. Okay, they're going to say that your property taxes went down because your assessed values are going to go up, and inevitably they're going to be collecting more than the $51.7 million next year. Okay, they're gonna let's just say this, with the assessed values going up, say they collect $55 million next year. Okay, because the assessed values go up, and I'm just pulling out a hypothetical number, they will inevitably go up because the assessed values go up every single year. Those assessed values, they collect 55. Okay, 55 million next year because the assessed values go up and they don't change that property tax levy. Okay, that rate. There's 55 million, okay, that they've got, and then they do minus 2 million. Okay, well, 55 minus 2 million would be 53 million. Okay, so they'll say that your property taxes went down. That's not true because they collected 51 million the previous year. Okay, so you're paying overall 53 million. Okay, and they're saying that, oh, your property taxes went down. No, 53 million, okay, 51 million, okay, so they are going to tax you more. Your property taxes are going to go up. They say that they're not going to go up, but I'm telling you, if they collect, so bottom line, if they pass a levy higher than 49.7 million next tax, and when they go to pass their next levy, okay, the school board, when they go to pass their next levy, if they pass a levy that yields higher than the 49.7 million figure, you were lied to. Okay, if they collect more than $49.7 million, or if they pass a levy that will collect more than $49.7 million, you were lied to. Your property taxes aren't going down. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. The news, Doc Bloomington Normal. Will they lower the property taxes? Don't hold your breath. I doubt that they're lower the property taxes. District 87 is planning to lower their property tax grab by $2 million, which is a third, they claim, of the revenue that is going to be estimated from this generated sales tax, the 1% sales tax. Okay, they plan to receive $6 million from the sales tax, and therefore what they're going to do is subtract 2 million off of, so that would be a third of the 6 million, 2 million. That would be a third of the revenue estimate of the 1% sales tax, and what they're going to do is they're going to subtract the 2 million from the property taxes they collect. But here's the thing, and this is how they think that you are dumb. They think that you won't get it. Okay, but we're going to explain it here on the other side, the math. And they're going to say that, oh yeah, your property taxes went down. Your assessed values are going to keep going up. Okay, now in total, the 51.7 million is what they've collected. Okay, in this last year. So that this last year they collected. Your property tax bill probably just came in the mail. 51.7 million is what District 87 collected from you, the taxpayers, okay, via property taxes. Okay, so if they don't subtract 2 million from that number, which would be 49.7 million, if they don't subtract the 2 million from that number, then they didn't decrease your property taxes, okay, because your assessed values are going to go up, and most likely what's going to wind up happening, say that their property tax levy just stays the same, what's going to happen, and they don't increase the property tax levy, most likely that's what's going to happen. They're going to keep it flat, but the assessed values go up, so next year they're going to probably collect like 55 million, right? And I'm just throwing a hypothetical number out there, okay? Like they're going to collect more. I don't know how much that more is because the assessed values are going to go up. Okay, so let's just say 55 million is what they collect. Then they subtract 2 million from that number, so that would be 53 million. So therefore, you are still paying more property taxes, and your property taxes still get increased because 51 is smaller than 53 million. You get what I'm saying? Like they just if they pass a levy higher than 49.7 million, you were lied to. Okay, so if they collect more than 49.7 million, the school board, if they pass a levy that is higher and it collects more than that 49.7 million, then you were lied to. Okay, that's the only way they can say that, oh, we did lower your property taxes, is if they collect less than they did this year, which would be 49.7 million, $2 million less, or whatever the third of the estimated revenue is, or the revenue is for the 1%, because it could be less than 2 million, which I wouldn't be shocked if we come to find out that it is going to be less than the third, or than the 2 million, because people are probably going to buy their goods in other counties to avoid the 1% sales tax. I know I would if I'm commuting into work, right? And Bloomington, they talk about this all the time, how they want the commuters to come live in Bloomington. Okay, so there's a lot of people who commute into work here into Bloomington. If they want those people to buy goods and services in Bloomington, they probably shouldn't have higher sales tax than the surrounding counties. They're just going to buy their coffee in the county that they live in then. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to buy coffee here in Bloomington. They're not going to make large purchases like at Best Buy or anything. They're just going to go to a county over that doesn't have the 1% sales tax. So we're going to get to that. I do want to get to this activist judge. She is shutting down President Donald Trump's really his policy that we voted him to implement in. She's shutting this down, and she's overriding really the will of the voters, because and enough is enough. I'm done with these activist judges. I'm just done with it. Like, we are in a constitutional crisis, and the constitutional crisis is these NGO progressive billionaires funding these lawsuits through these progressive NGOs, and they're going to cherry pick progressive judges who will rule in their favor, knowing that it's going to tie up Trump's ability to do anything he was elected to do by the people, okay, until 2028. Like, they're going to try to tie Donald Trump's hands here, and we elected him so that way he could do things. And that is the constitutional crisis, because we have a weaponized branch of government who's trying to stop the will of the people, which is tyrannical. We're going to get to this 120-page opinion, U.S. District Judge Colleen Kolar-Catelli, and what she said in it regarding Donald Trump wanting to require proof of citizenship at the time of voter registration. I'll be right back. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be right back in just a little bit. Welcome to Cities 92.9 News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Let's get to the progressive judge, the political activist, I'd like to call her. Now, she's a D.C. judge, and her name might ring a bell, and I'll get to why here in just a second. But Colleen Kolar-Catelli, she's blocking Trump's attempt to require proof of citizenship in order to vote, which is something we mandated him to do when we elected him to do it, right? The federal judge says it's unconstitutional to require proof, and you're allowed to vote, to require proof of people. And that's just ridiculous because the federal law says that non-citizens are not allowed to vote in federal elections. So we have to prove that somehow. Okay, we have to enforce that somehow. And I would say like 80% of Americans are pro requiring proof at voter registration that you are a citizen. Okay. I guess it's a conspiracy theory to say that Democrats support open border policies and they're, supportive of those policies because they want to import new Democrat voters. I guess that's a conspiracy theory, but this is proof that this isn't probably a conspiracy theory because I don't know anybody who is anti voter registration, like proving you're a citizen at the time of voter registration. Like, what's so hard about that? And she blocked Donald Trump's administration in a 120-page opinion from requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote and ordering that election officials assess the citizenship of anyone who receives public assistance before allowing them to register. So she shut this down where elected officials would have to assess the citizenship. So if you want like Social Security, if you want Medicaid, if you want some sort of public assistance, in Chicago, they do these like rental assistant things, public Section 8 housing, right? If you need public assistance, these officials who carry out that public assistance, they should assess whether you're a citizen or not and should receive that public assistance, right? No, according to this Judge Colleen. And I guess it's bad, for election officials, to see the proof of citizenship. I don't know, in her whole argument, she also barred the Election Assistance Commission from withholding federal funding from states that did not comply with the order. So this executive order where he says, hey, you have to require proof of citizenship. Otherwise, the Election Assistance Commission is going to withhold federal funding from you. So like your election authorities, your local election authorities, Donald Trump could withhold federal funding. She barred that from happening if they don't comply with this order of requiring proof of citizenship. And, it's getting ridiculous at this point. It just is. Like, there is a constitutional crisis brewing here in America, and it's not what Donald Trump is doing. It's what these billionaire progressives are doing in the court system. So as it turns out, there is an oligarchy. It's just the billionaire progressives funding these progressive lawsuits through these progressive NGOs, where they cherry pick progressive judges who will rule in their favor. And they know that they're going to tie up Donald Trump's ability to do anything that he was elected to do and what we want him to do. Okay, so this judge, you should recognize her name. She is also anti-Christian, has anti-Christian tendencies. We're going to get to that in just a second. But I do want to play this clip from Scott Jennings on CNN. He talks about the really oligarchy. What's going on here with our judges is unconstitutional, and they are overstepping the bounds of the judicial branch, and they're stepping on the toes of the executive branch, and that's not good. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Well, I think there's a difference between saying whether you're complying with the law, and then you have these individual district court judges setting effectively broad federal policy that is specifically reserved for the president of the United States. I think we do have a constitutional crisis, and it's being caused by these judges. They're not here to tell us. They're not here to tell us how to spend the money. They're not here to set broad federal policy. That is the president's job as elected by the people. These judges are supposed to be settling discrete, specific matters, not policy setting. I think Vance is right. I think Trump has a point. And these judges want nothing more to continue the lawfare against
I don't
Trump.
think anybody's going to be surprised to hear that you think Trump is
they're
right.
doing this on
However,
I get it. You want individual federal judges who hate Donald Trump
No, I don't.
to tie him up for 4 years.
No, I don't.
If you want a big
Not at
policy
all.
questions decided, let the Supreme Court do it. But in the interim, the executive has to be allowed to
pray
govern.
tell.
Well, I think there's a difference.
Yeah, exactly. So these are lower judges at this point. Judge Colleen Kohler-Catelli, like I said, should sound familiar, and I want to get to this because she's an anti-Christian. She's the one who sent a 75-year-old woman, grandmother, okay, to prison for praying outside of an abortion clinic, or I don't even want to call them clinics, abortion factories, baby killing operations. And the woman's husband pleaded with the Judge Colleen. He said, look, my wife could die in prison. She's 75 years old. The judge mocked this woman for being a Christian, by the way, and said, quote, maybe you should just make an effort to remain alive because isn't that a tenet of your religion? Which is just so disgusting. This is an anti-Christian judge. Thankfully, this woman was pardoned by President Donald Trump. 2 months ago, the DC judge Colleen Kohler-Catelli, so this judge, sentenced Paulette Harlow is her name. She's 75 years old. She was in poor health to 2 years in prison. Okay, just a few months ago, before Donald Trump was, she was pardoned. I think it was a couple of months ago. But she was praying outside of an abortion clinic, okay? And she tried to get her, I think, on like the FACE Act or whatever, which says that you can't go in front of an abortion clinic a certain amount of feet, which is just so ridiculous. You have the right to movement in this country. And she was 75 years old and she was praying, okay, chill. And the husband said, hey, please, she's in poor health. Don't send her to prison. Thank God Donald Trump was there and pardoned her. I'm at a loss, okay, for what even the solution is here with these progressive judges. It's clear that the Democrats and the billionaires who fund these Democrats are going to find judges somewhere in America to rule against anything that Donald Trump was elected to do. That's ultimately what's happening. And I foresaw this happening because of Joe Biden's actions prior to Donald Trump getting in. They were filling in these judges like crazy with progressive radicals. Donald Trump can't deport criminals who are here illegally. He can't ask institutions to, hey, check for voter ID, ask these election authorities to, I don't know, enforce federal law that says, hey, non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. And all he's doing with this executive order is simply saying, hey, let's verify their citizenship at the time of registration. And I don't know why we didn't even have this before, because it is federal law that non-citizens can't vote in elections. And if you ask anybody, it's like an 80-20 issue. Most people are pro proof of citizenship at the time of registration. But Donald Trump can't deport MS-13 gang members. He can't deport foreign activists who are paid by Qatar to come here and terrorize American students on behalf of Hamas. Okay, they're all here terrorizing Columbia University, Jewish students. He can't deport those foreign activists who are paid by foreign countries and adversaries to come here and terrorize these Jewish students. He can't deport those people. He can't deport MS-13. What can he do? Okay, is that like at this point it'd be easier to just tell Donald Trump what he can do as president. And he can't call for an election system where you need to prove that you're a citizen in order to vote. He can't call for that. This is a broad federal policy. These are broad federal policies. We're talking national security. We're talking the election system. This is what we voted Donald Trump to do. And enough is enough. Enough is enough. I don't recall voting for Judge Colleen. Do you? I voted for Donald Trump. And she's acting as if she has the authority to override the will of the people, and she's stepping on the toes of the executive branch. And that is a constitutional crisis. That is a threat to democracy. These people need to stay in their lane, which is the judicial branch. They shouldn't be commenting or implementing broad federal policy. That is up to the president. And this is going to have an effect on future elections. Don't forget it. When the Democrats come in, now the Republicans are going to, when there's Democrat president elected, Republican judges are going to do the same thing. And we've effectively defanged the president from a role and taken his role away from him. So, and we elected him to do that. These judges are, installed, most of the time appointed, and they were appointed by President Joe Biden, and they serve life terms. Okay, so like we have no say over who these judges really are at the ballot box. Some of them, like these lower level ones, right? But this is a constitutional crisis. So this judge has decided to halt parts of Donald Trump's executive order that requires proof of citizenship when registering to vote, according to CNN. Quote, "Our Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections." Consistent with that allocation of power, Congress is currently debating legislation that would affect many of the changes that President Donald Trump purports to order. No statutory delegation of authority to the executive branch permits the president to short-circuit Congress's deliberative process by executive order. Okay, so the judge is pausing a separate provision in the executive order that would require federal agencies to offer registration opportunities to assess a person's citizenship for providing a person a voter registration form. So essentially what's going on here, there's a provision within the executive order that she's halting that says, hey, you can't, as an election authority, ask for proof of citizenship at the time of registration, okay? And I don't know anybody who's actively against asking for proof of citizenship at the time of voter registration. They do not want secure elections. Okay, if your election authority, so McLean County Clerk Kathy Michael, if she were to be against, I don't know, if she were to be against asking for proof of citizenship at the time of voter registration, that's pretty ridiculous, and that shows you that person does not care about secure elections. Okay, because this is already federal law. Non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. So I don't know what the problem is here. And the only reason why you'd be against that is because you want non-citizens to vote in the election. Okay, so there's really no reason why somebody would be against asking for citizenship at the time of registration. I really don't know, unless you are actively trying to create unsecure elections. There's no other way to look at it. That's the only possible reason why you would not want to ask people for proof of citizenship at the time of registration. Every illegitimate vote, further overrides the will of the people. The Americans deserve the right, they have the right to know that their vote matters and that it's not canceled out by somebody who shouldn't be voting in our elections, our federal elections, illegally. So she uses this really comical reasoning behind, shutting down Donald Trump's provision here within his executive order. She says that he has no statutory delegation of authority and that he can't short circuit Congress. However, I do recall a judge having, I don't ever recall a judge having that, right? So she's saying that Donald Trump doesn't have this statutory delegation of authority and that he's short-circuiting Congress. Well, guess what she's doing? She's doing the exact same thing. She says that Donald Trump is doing it, but she is. I don't recall a judge having the statutory delegation of authority to overrule the will of the American people. We elected President Donald Trump. We didn't elect her. Okay, so the executive order is what the people voted for. She condemns, obviously, secure elections. She's against secure elections, clearly. And she could care less about your vote mattering, or your vote it matters to you. You deserve the right to know, you deserve knowing your vote matters. And she doesn't care about any of that. So there's a bunch of people in black robes. I've got to take a quick break, but they are all making sweeping orders to block Donald Trump's executive orders and his policy that we voted him in to implement. I'll be right back. Okay, I gotta take a quick break, but smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Good morning, appreciate you being here. Lisa, good morning. So do appreciate you. When we come back, there's more black robes who have been making sweeping orders to block Donald Trump's agenda. Okay, the guy we voted in to implement this agenda. They blocked Donald Trump from defunding sanctuary cities. They blocked Donald Trump from defunding schools that push DEI. They're trying to block Donald Trump's requirement of proof of citizenship to vote. They've ordered Donald Trump to return an illegal alien from El Salvador. Okay. So this is political activism within the judiciary, and it needs to stop. They're stepping on the toes of the executive branch, and we are in a constitutional crisis now because they're trying to weaponize the judicial branch of government. And make it the all-powerful branch of government, which is dangerous because we elected President Donald Trump, not this judge. So I'm going to be right back. You're listening to. She was appointed by Bill Clinton, by the way. This judge. I'll be right back. Smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're back. We're going to be talking a little bit about District 87. I told you that their, property taxes, they say that they're going to go down and they're going to lower the property tax grab by $2 million, which is a third of the estimated revenue that they're planning to get from the 1% sales tax that was just recently voted on, and y'all voted yes. I don't know why. District 87, this past tax bill, according to BLN News, they got, and primary documents are there on BLN News. You guys can go check it out. Primary documents show the total collected, the $51.7 million. Where does that figure come from? That's what was collected this last year, okay, from the property taxes for District 87. Okay, so if they want to bring down property taxes, what they're going to have to do is 51.7 million minus the 2 million. Okay, for this year, if they want to bring down property taxes. Now, here's what's going to wind up happening, and I can guarantee this. The assessed values are going to go up, obviously, over the next year. So let's just hypothetical number here. The assessed values go up. The amount levied, okay, when the assessed value goes up, obviously the amount levied, that rate, and the assessed values go up, you're going to be taking in more money, okay, because this is a rate. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking in more money. So let's just put a hypothetical number on it, $55 million, okay? Assessed values go up. They collect $55 million instead of 51, okay? So their revenue increased because the assessed values went up, but the property rate, tax rate went the same. They're going to say, okay, well, The assessed values went up. They act as if they can't bring down this property tax rate, by the way, at all. Like it's untouchable. Okay. Which is just so not true. If they really wanted property tax relief, they'd lower these property tax rates. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, we collected 55 million and we're going to subtract, 2 million off of the 55 million. Okay, hypothetical number, 55 million. I'm sure it won't be that much, but 55 million, we're going to subtract the 2 million. And then it would be 53 million is what their total revenue is. So they're going to claim that your property taxes went down, but they didn't. Okay, in order for them to truly say it went down, okay, the school board has to pass if the school board passes a levy higher than 49.7 million, okay, collected, then they're lying to you. Okay, so they shouldn't collect any more than the 49.7 million in order to claim that property taxes went down. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. According to WGLT, they've got this, and I got this from BLN News, a lot of these figures, so you guys are going to want to check that out. Diane Benjamin does a great job. The Chief Financial and Facilities Officer, Michael Cornell, explained that the district is going to honor their promise to provide $2 million in property tax relief using revenue that they're going to generate from this recently approved countywide sales tax. Okay, so the 1% sales tax that you all voted yes on because, I don't know, you feel guilty about the kids being in prison. Essentially what looks like a prison, acts like a prison, right? The kids aren't learning anything and you feel bad. That's why you voted yes. Change my mind. Okay. The $2 million represents 1/3 of the $6 million estimated revenue that they're going to pull in from the sales tax. Okay. So that's where the $2 million figure is coming from. If the actual revenue exceeds 6 million, which I doubt we're going to run into a problem with because commuters are not going to be buying things here anymore because it's so high and it's expensive. Commuters aren't going to be buying things here. They're just going to buy in the county over to avoid the 1% sales tax. That's what's going to wind up happening. But whatever. If the actual revenue exceeds $6 million, it's going to be 1/3 of whatever that dollar amount is, the revenue that's generated from the sales tax that they're going to take off your total property tax commitment. Now, here's the interesting thing that BLN News points out. And they think you're dumb. That's why, I wanted to pull these numbers. They think you're absolutely dumb, and they're going to say that your property tax went down, but it actually didn't. So here's how they're going to do it. District 87, they're obviously planning to lower the property tax grab by $2 million, which is 1/3 of the estimated revenue that they're going to receive from the 1% sales tax. Don't expect your property taxes to go down. Your assessed value is going to be going up. Okay, so if District 87 wants to collect more than 51.7 minus the 2 million, that's $49.7 million a year, or this year. If they're going to collect more than $49.7 million, your taxes are going to go up. Okay, so where did the 51.7 million figure come in, Kat? That came in, that's what they collected last year. So their revenue that came in from the taxpayer was taken from you via your property taxes. Okay, that figure is $51.7 million. If they're serious about lowering the property tax burden for people, considering the sales tax, the generated sales tax, what they should do is subtract 2 million off of that number, the 51.7 million. So that would total out to $49.7 million. If the school board passes a levy higher than the $49.7 million, if they pass a levy, that generates revenue that's higher than $49.7 million, you were lied to. So for example, say your assessed values go up, and I'm just pulling a number out of the hat here, hypothetically, because we don't know what that number is going to be, but they keep the property tax levy rate the same. Okay, and your assessed values go up. Ultimately, that they keep the rate the same. Hypothetically, let's say they collect $55 million. They're going to try to subtract $2 million from that number, and then they're going to claim that your property taxes went down. Okay, that's what they're going to do. Now, if they collect more than $49.7 million, You were lied to. They're gonna do it this way. I just know it. They're liars, and that's how they're gonna finagle this. They're gonna say, "Oh yeah, $2 million. We subtracted it off the total property tax grab." Like, okay, but really, what you should do is to lower my property taxes. What you should do is subtract the 2 million from this year's property tax grab, which is that 51.7 million. You subtract 2 million from that, that's 49 million, and you shouldn't pass a levy that collects higher than the 49 million. So yeah, they're gonna pull out all the string. They think you're stupid, and it really bothers me. And they shouldn't have gotten the sales tax, because ultimately they're just going to collect more money, like from this. So if they generate $6 million, okay, you do the math. Of course, they like that. This was a no-brainer. They're going to generate, let's say, $6 million, $2 million, so $4 million, okay, that they get from the sales tax. And then the assessed values go up. They, let's just pull out a number. If the assessed values go up 55 million from the 51, they're making like, 5 million more than what they got this last year. I mean, this is, it just bothers me so much. And not to mention the kids can't read or write or do math. Okay. I want to get to a few things here in the 7 o'clock hour. I got to take a quick break. Seattle. They are combating nudists in the park. Okay, so there's parks and there's nudists in the park, and they're, doing very nefarious things in these parks. And the way that they're going to combat this is by setting up a deterrent infrastructure. What? So they're wanting to get nudists out of the park by building an infrastructure that gets them in there to pleasure themselves. Yes. It's kind of similar to what Illinois is doing with the, what are they called? Oh, I don't know. They like the overdose prevention centers. That's what they call them. This is where you can bring in your dope bag of heroin and bring it into an infrastructure and get high there under supervision. Okay, so this is like a state sanctioned nudist infrastructure where you can go and pleasure yourself in this infrastructure that is done on the taxpayer dime in Seattle. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'll be right back. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Yes, absolutely crazy. So Seattle, they're having a real problem with nudists, and I can speak kind of freely here on the stream. It's hard to navigate this story for FCC regulations on the radio, but on the stream I can kind of be loose with this. So there's a lot of nudists in this park in Seattle, multiple parks in Seattle, okay? And what they're doing is they're masturbating in public, okay? So what Seattle has done in order to combat that, rather than arrest these people for indecent exposure, nudity, public indecency, sex offenses, sexual abuse, right? Like masturbating in public, like that's victimizing people. That's called sexual abuse, okay? If you're masturbating in front of people in front of the public, okay, like this is very, very clear. There's already laws on the books that they could be enforcing, okay, what Seattle could be doing here. Now, what they're doing is they're building a deterrent infrastructure. So what they're going to wind up doing in Seattle is they're going to build this like little infrastructure, okay, this building, and they're going to encourage the nudists to go there and to masturbate inside this infrastructure away from the public eye. And it's all done on taxpayer dime. So rather than enforcing the indecency laws, the public indecency laws, anything like that, they're just going to build an infrastructure for them to do it inside, rather than enforcing the law, which, I mean, you could convict them of all kinds of things: sexual abuse, sex misdemeanors, sexual violence. I mean, if you are doing that in front of somebody and they're not a consenting party, right? And especially this is in public, it's public indecency. I mean, there's a whole host of laws that you could charge these people with, and that would be the deterrent, right? Would be charging people who do these kinds of things, not the building. Okay, the building isn't even really probably going to do anything much much like these overdose prevention centers in Illinois that they're trying to get passed. They're not going to do anything because ultimately what's going to wind up happening is they're not going to go into these buildings. They might, but they're not going to go in with this effort or with this idea of getting off the drugs. Okay, they might go into these buildings, they might be used, but really what they're going to do is use this as a cop out, right? Oh, well, there's this building here and I couldn't make it to the building, that's why I had to OD over in the park. Okay, or that's why I had to OD over on this bus, or at this bus stop or whatever, or wherever I'm at. I'm in my tent, in Chicago under a bridge, right? And I'm going to use the center as an excuse as to why I'm overdosing and using open air drug deals and things like that. They're essentially allowing on taxpayer dime, because they'd have to build a center and then we'd have to pay for the people to observe the center, the IDHS. They're going to be the ones, the agency oversees the overdose prevention centers. The taxpayers are going to be on the hook for that. The taxpayers are going to be on the hook for the actual infrastructure. Same thing in Seattle. The taxpayers are going to be on the hook for the deterrent infrastructure is what they call it. And then of course you have to staff the deterrent infrastructure, unless they aren't going to staff it, and it's just like whatever, just go. It's like a run-in shed for your public masturbation, which is weird. It's just so sick. Yeah. What? That's sick. Yeah. Shakespeare in the park? No, nudists in the park. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about these nudists and getting them out of the public eye. And it's like taxpayer funded sex like they want to do a sex club. Okay, they want to fund a sex club on taxpayer dime. That's ultimately what this is about. And this should tell you all you need to know about your elected officials and they want to fund their drug use on taxpayer dime. That's what they want to do. They want to fund their sexual perversions and their drug use on taxpayer dime. So it's not just these public sector officials who want to take your money and not work for your money, okay, to steal your money. And I don't mean that as a metaphor, as hyperbole, or as an exaggeration. They quite literally steal your money from you because they don't want to build anything or create anything in the private sector. And I've talked about this several times. Exactly. This is a taxpayer-funded sex club, much like it's a taxpayer-funded drug den that Illinois wants to do with these I mean, the depravity. Okay, we are living in the last days of the last days, I'm telling you, because I've never seen anything quite like this. And I mean, they're just so blatant about it. You guys can always join me on the stream and comment. This is crazy. What? That's sick. Yes, before I took the break, I was telling you about this story in Seattle. And this nothing shocks me anymore. Like, we've got to be living in the last days of the last days here, because this does not shock me. And the city is now allowing for a taxpayer-funded deterrent infrastructure for nudists. Okay, so Seattle is combating the nudist problem in the parks, and they are publicly pleasuring themselves. Okay, these nudists in the park all around Seattle. This isn't just one park, this is multiple parks, and what they want to do is a deterrent infrastructure where these nudists can go and I guess pleasure themselves out of the public eye. Okay, so this is the story. Let me get to it. It's no surprise that Seattle condones debauchery at the expense of the sane population. Okay, the sane people would understand that the cops should be cuffing these people and charging them with sexual assault, abuse, public indecency. I mean, the list goes on. Like, this is illegal activity if you're nude in the park, just for everyone to see. And but they don't care. So what the city is doing, they are going to allow for a lakeside destination to become a nudist park. Okay, they're going to allow it to become a nudist park, and they're turning a blind eye to a bunch of pervs. And they're doing very illegal lewd behavior. There's illegal activity going on by these perverts in this park, and they are going to combat that by allowing an infrastructure for them to kind of go into and do it out of the public eye, or do whatever they want to do out of the public eye, these nudists. So according to KOML News, a group of Seattle homeowners, they're suing the city. Allegedly, elected leaders have knowingly allowed Denny Blaine Park to become a regional venue for criminal and uncivil behavior. Okay, so that's what the homeowners are suing the elected officials in the city for. They're saying that you've allowed this park to become a venue for criminal behavior and for uncivil behavior. So the homeowners, they point to numerous cases of public masturbation in broad daylight. And instead of ending that activity and arresting them for that illegal activity, they're going to spend taxpayer money on a public masturbation deterrent infrastructure at the park. So they're going to build a building. They're going to say, hey, nudists, you can go do that, but you can do it in this building. So it's similar to the idea of the overdose prevention centers that Illinois is trying to implement. So there are prevention center, one center. They want to build the center where people can bring their little baggies of dope and go get high in this center. And then the IDHS, the government agency, oversees that center. Oversees the building where people go in and they get high on heroin. Okay, so they're doing the same thing in Seattle, but this time it's just nudity rather than doing drugs. That illegal activity. Instead of arresting people for the illegal activity of doing drugs, dealing drugs, using drugs, open air drug deals, instead of arresting those people, what they've decided to do is overdose prevention center. And you can do it as long as it's under our government roof. And you get a pass essentially on this illegal activity. So unclear how this infrastructure is going to deter this kind of behavior. I don't think it really will. You might have some people go into the infrastructure, but like most of these people, if you're depraved enough and if you're perverted enough to where you want to do this out in public, I don't think like a building or like a run-in shed for these nudists is going to do much. I'm just saying, like, this speaks volumes about how deranged these elected officials are. Much like the overdose prevention centers, I don't think one building is going to prevent many overdoses, or prevent people from doing drugs outside of the building. Okay, there's obviously going to be people who dope up outside of this IDHS agency overdose prevention center. And it's not going to do much of anything, okay, much like this in Seattle. So in 2023, after a private effort to build a playground at the site became public, members of the LGBTQ community pushed back, calling it an attempt to purposefully displace the queer community, and found that the park and the beach there is a safe haven, to be a safe haven for LGBTQ members. So they didn't want like a public park to be built there for kids, because LGBTQ members use the park, and the LGBTQ members, apparently they can't coexist with children. So saying that this park is a haven for LGBTQ community after all the evidence of things that go on there, I wouldn't say that's a flex or something to be proud of. Okay, I would not say that these are all LGBTQ people, because essentially, and I know that this isn't their intent, they're essentially blaming the LGBTQ community for these illegal lewd acts that are happening at this park, and it comes off as pretty homophobic, if you ask me. In fact, a gay male who is there in Seattle at this park and lives near the park most of his life, he said, this has nothing to do with gay people or not gay people. He said he wishes to remain anonymous, so I don't have his name, but he said, quote, I'm just asking the city to enforce the laws that are on the book and get rid of the illegal activity and this lewd behavior that goes on down there. Okay, so there's members of the LGBTQ community who in 2023, a couple of years ago, they didn't want the kid park to be built there, okay, a playground to be built there, because this is supposed to be a safe haven for the LGBTQ community. And now, fast forward 2025, all of these illegal lewd acts are happening in this park. That's not a flex. I would not attribute that to the LGBT, because it comes off as homophobic to me. And surely that's not their intent, because there's members of the LGBTQ community who say that this is their haven, their safe haven. So weird. So videos, pictures, it's shown by KOMO News, and I looked at it. I mean, I'm not going to share them with you. You can go on the stream if you want, but I'll share a little bit of stuff that's going on in Seattle. But there, in these videos, you can see multiple people performing sex acts in the park in broad daylight. Other visitors, they're like trying to turn away and look away. There's clips that show lewd behavior in Denny Blaine parking lot. Video surveillance cameras indicate that the park goers have actually gone into private homes surrounding the park. So the private homeowners, they're having to deal with these park goers because now it's overflowing into their private properties. So there's in various park goers in various stages of undress. Okay, so they're just nudists that are getting up onto the lawns of these people who live near this park. And now they want to waste public funds. The elected officials in this area, they want to waste public funds. They want to waste taxpayer dollars on a deterrent infrastructure because they think that that's going to be the remedy here. Oh gosh, it's just so silly. They allow this degenerate behavior to take place. There's a very simple fix: cuff them for their illegal activity, and yeah, that's it. Cuff them, lock them up, and charge them, and make them register as sex offenders. Very, very easy fix to this. You don't need the deterrent structure or the infrastructure there. Yeah, but this is much like what Illinois is doing with the overdose prevention centers. This is a state sanctioned. What they want, the public sector, they want to take taxpayer money and essentially create a sex club. That's what they want to do. Same with the overdose prevention centers. And they're going to slap a cute little name on it, right? And they're going to say, oh, well, this is an overdose prevention center. This is a deterrent center. Deter public nudity with this center or this deterrent infrastructure. And they're going to slap these labels on them. Really what this is public sector officials, your elected officials, people you elect into office, what they want to do is have a place where they can do their drugs freely, and a place for them to, pleasure themselves freely out of the public eye, and they want to do it on your dime. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk blooming to normal. I'll be right back. Violence against Republicans? Oh, I haven't seen that, but let me go check it out. I did talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker and how he's doing essentially sanctions on the El Salvador as a country, boycotting this country, boycotting the companies that we work with, which I don't think we should be doing considering the financial mess that we're in as Illinois. The unemployment rate, the mass layoffs, the closure of plants. Violence against Republicans. I'll have to look this up. Oh, here it is. Yep. I haven't heard this yet. So this is going to be straight up. Okay, here we go. Let me see here. Well, hold on one second. This is Governor J.B. Pritzker. I guess he is inciting violence against Republicans now. So let me pull this up. Thank you for coming on, Bob, and let me know. I'll share and we'll react to it. This is the first time I'm kind of seeing this video. I haven't seen it yet. I saw that this was running around, but I pulled the El Salvador bit where he is essentially boycotting this country. And that tells me all I really need to know about 2028. He's running for president. That's what's going to wind up happening here. So here we go. Let's take a listen.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
What does he say here?
They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box. The ballot box. And then punish them on the soapbox and then castigate them on the soapbox.
Soapbox? I don't know. I missed what he said there. I don't know what he said exactly. Okay, number one, this is not the first time. So here he says,
never before in my life have I called for mass protests.
Okay, not true. Okay, first of all, Governor J.B. Pritzker and his entire family are pro mass protests with their dollars. Okay, so he says he doesn't call for them, but Suzanne Pritzker, who serves on the Salvador Network, was definitely pro the Adala Justice Project going onto college campuses. These encampments that they had set up, they were arrested. The Adala Justice Project executive directors and the presidents of those of that organization. The Adala Justice Project is a radical anti-Semitic group. He says that he doesn't call for that kind of stuff. He's obviously an advocate of it, or at least his family is, and their money, the family money, is advocates of mass protests because they're happening all over college campuses on the Pritzker family under the Pritzker family watch. Suzanne Pritzker, she serves on the Salvador Network. And they allocated funds to the Adala Justice Project, and those the individuals who head up that project were arrested for vandalism, for assault, and things like that. So they clearly are pro mass protest and incitement and violence. Okay, so when Governor J.B. Pritzker says that he's never called for that before, he most definitely has, in that he hasn't condemned it. Okay, clearly. And in fact, you can make the argument that the financial support from his family members indicate that he's pro it as well. When questioned about it, he said that it's outright lies that his family funds this, which is just inevitable. Like, it's just a fact at this point. So yeah, we'll play the rest of this clip here. Hold on. For our radio friends. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate it. Yes. What kind of deterrent infrastructure will end the nonsense that is going on in Seattle? It won't. Long story short, here's the trend with Seattle leftists. First, they ignore the problem, and then they often resort to insults towards concerned citizens. So they're going to ignore this problem of nudists in the park. And, I gave you the story where they want to build on taxpayer dime, of course, this deterrent infrastructure where these nudists can go in and pleasure themselves out of the public eye. But at first, when concerned citizens raised this issue, they denied it, and now they're putting a fake Band-Aid on this, like the deterrent infrastructure, and they hope that this fake Band-Aid is going to convince the people that it's out of their hands. No, just do your dang job. Arrest the people for public indecency, for sexual abuse, right? Nonetheless, they've proven that they would rather fight for this for special privileges. Okay, so this deterrent infrastructure, they get their own building. They'd rather fight for the special privileges of these nudists and these perverts and drug addicts. By the way, here in the state of Illinois, they want the overdose prevention centers. You're fighting for special privileges of these people, the most depraved people of society. And the fact that that's not surprising. You shouldn't be shocked by this. I'm not shocked by what Seattle is doing for the nudist. I'm not shocked by what Illinois is doing for the the drug addicts. It's not surprising to me, and that's a scandal. That is a scandal, folks. What else is scandalous? Governor J.B. Pritzker essentially calling for violence against Republicans. Here we go.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now.
Okay, so straight up lie. He has, in fact, like, I wouldn't say call for it. I mean, I'd have to pull things from his Twitter. I'm sure he has called for it, but his actions speak even louder than his words ever have. His entire family is funding these protests that happen, or these encampments that happen, these anti-Semitic encampments that happen on college campuses around the country and around the state even. So the Adala Justice Project, look into it. The Solidaire Network, that's Suzanne Pritzker, a family member of his. She's the treasurer of that Solidaire Network board. And they give money to the Adala Justice Project, which is just one of many nonprofit organizations, or nonprofit organizations. This is a terrorist organization. Okay, these are very, very radical individuals who believe that the Jewish population should be wiped off the face of the earth. Okay, so his family, they definitely allocate dollars to these types of projects who go on to college campuses, and specifically that Adala Justice Project, the leaders of that organization, they were arrested at a college campus. I think it was in Illinois, in St. Louis, I think. So yeah, they he's wrong. Okay, first of all, Governor J.B. Pritzker is one of the most radical governors in this nation, and has always, with his rhetoric, called for violence, and his violent rhetoric has always called for violence against Republicans. So take a listen to this.
These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
So yeah, I missed what he said there. I couldn't quite tell what he said on the microphone, but all over, I mean, Bloomington, Normal, and around the nation, there are these, they're not grassroots protests, they're nationwide protests. And his family, billionaires, progressive billionaires, are orchestrating these national protests, these nationwide protests. So these people don't care about the massive debt being handed down to your kids, grandkids, and beyond. They don't care about the number of illegal immigrants that the Democrats have allowed into the country for 4 years, these people gathering. And this is not grassroots. This is not your average Joe. Okay, these are people who make a living in the public sector and off of these nonprofit organizations through progressive billionaires that fund their salaries, and they're paid to go out and do these national protests. So he's calling for this, knowing full well that for national protests and for mass unrest or whatever he says here, mass protests, he's calling for these mass protests, knowing that these mass protests are going to be happening because progressive billionaires like him fund them. Okay, so he knows that these mass protests are going to happen no matter what, because it's not grassroots. People are paid to go out there and cause like they're doing another one on May 3rd here. So he's calling for it, and then they're going to happen, and then he's orchestrating, and this is how you know he's running for 2028. It's going to look like he called for the protest and then they happened, and that he has more support than he actually does, which isn't true. He's using his money to get these people out there in mass and do these mass protests. All right, I got to go for the day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back. Just that one lady clapping. I know. I feel like everybody like sat down and they were like looked at it for a second and they were like, did he actually just call for unrest and for violence against Republicans? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But like I said, Governor J.B. Pritzker is 100% orchestrating a 2028 run. He's calling for mass protests now. But behind the scenes, we know that he, for a very long time, has been orchestrating these mass protests with his dollars and with other progressive billionaires. They're coming in and they're orchestrating these protests. And he's well aware of these protests just being orchestrated throughout the nation. And he wants to look, he's calling for it. And he wants to look like he's got all the support and that he's the one who facilitated these protests solely, which he isn't solely orchestrating these mass protests because there's other progressive billionaires who fund these protests, and essentially they give money to people and give them t-shirts and they swap out the t-shirts, whether it's like disability groups or immigration groups or whatever, and they get like 4 or 5 t-shirts, and then they say, okay, wear this t-shirt and come here and we're going to pay you a flat rate of $150 today. Like, that's how they orchestrate these mass protests. And it's funded by people like him. So this is not going to be organic. He's calling for the mass protest because he knows that they're going to happen and he wants to like facilitate or orchestrate this fake support. Like, oh, the mass protests happened. Governor J.B. Pritzker called for them. That must mean that people listen to him. Not true. People are out there because they're getting paid $150 a day through their nonprofit organization that they work for. So you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. And we'll do it all over again tomorrow.